Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
Ever thought about where local restaurants get the mushrooms that they serve in their delicious meals? Probably not. But you may not have known that there is a local connection. This month's Soundbite segment with our partners at Sauce Magazine features Nicola Macpherson of Ozark Forest Mushrooms. She's an immigrant from the UK who runs a mushroom farm. Her business supplies mushrooms to many of the restaurants in the St. Louis area. And she joins me in studio today to talk about how she got her start in mushroom farming and how she keeps it going. Also joining us is Sauce Magazine Managing Editor, Catherine Klene. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Well, let's just start at the beginning. How did you get started?
Well, that's a long question. A lot of people find it extraordinary that a British woman is growing Japanese mushrooms in the Ozarks. I started off because I met my husband junior year abroad in England. And cut a long story short, we married, moved over, and his family farm is deep in Shannon County, a very rural, remote area of Missouri. And we started, he'd been to a conference in Kansas City and had learnt that the area of Ozarks is rather similar to northern Japan. We have a huge, vast supply of oak logs and springs, fresh water. Local people know how to work with timber and cordwood, and that shiitake mushroom production on oak logs was a wonderful business to start. So we started off just as a hobby, really, Sharon. 6 logs. Then the next year it was 100 logs, and then it went to 1,000. And now I hate to say it, but it's mushroomed, and we just inoculated this last winter 6,700 white oak shiitake logs.
Well, I know you are very proud of that. I know it's a lot of work.
Sure is.
Well, I'll share with our audience that Nicola has brought some of the mushrooms in. So can you paint a picture for our audience about what you have here, what you're talking about? Just
yes.
Tell them.
Yeah, I think what sets me apart from other mushroom farmers is my niche product is the oak log ground shiitakes. And so in the box here, we have an oak log, which you can see the inoculation sites of where we've actually punched or drilled holes in the log and then inoculated or punched in the spawn or the seed of the shiitake mushroom. And then we sealed it over with a hot cheese wax. We do all this in the winter when the sap is down in the oak logs. So I work with cordwood, timber guys out there in the woods, and I am the only woman doing this. And then I have a crew of local people down at the farm who help inoculate. And it always runs around from Thanksgiving right through to the beginning of March. And there's not much work to do in the area at that time of year, so a lot of local people are happy to get the work.
Describe this log that you brought in here today.
So it's actually a log kit. The ones we have at the farm are 4 foot long. And so like you can see, there's a diamond pattern of holes that we drill into the log. And then we have the ladies that then punch the spawn in. And then a person with a hot dauber comes along with a hot cheese wax to cover over this inoculation site.
Why cheese wax?
Cheese wax is like putting a Band-Aid on it, and it's food grade. And then it keeps any other fungus out of the log. And it also keeps the spawn from drying out.
Okay, and what kind of mushrooms do you have today?
Yeah, so growing on this log, you can see there's some baby shiitakes. And they're very different from the ones that you buy in the store, which are often grown on sawdust blocks. So I have a sawdust grown one here, which is very smooth and thin, stemmed. It looks like it's sort of a different mushroom. My mushrooms are at this time of year, they're super thick. They have these beautiful cracked tops. And in Japan, I was very fortunate. I went to Japan about 3 years ago and toured all the mushroom farms. And in Japan, the ones we grow here with the cracked tops are known as the grade 1 flower donko shiitake. And you can see they look like steaks. They're super thick, juicy. meaty, woodsy tasting. They do have a different flavor profile from the sawdust-grown ones. And that's why chefs, I think, once they taste the difference, there's no going back.
Well, that gives us a chance to ask Catherine. What was it about these mushrooms that Sauce Magazine found interesting?
I mean, it's exactly that. And we've talked to Nicola many times over the years about her mushrooms and talked about the restaurants that feature them many times. I actually made dinner last night with some of her shiitake mushrooms I picked up at the farmer's market on Saturday. The thing about those mushrooms, and if you look at them, you really do see the difference. The one from the store they have those very smooth tops. They tend to be a little paler. And the ones that you get from her have those cracked tops like she was talking about. They're a little darker. They're much thicker. And they're just a meatier, earthier, for lack of a better word, more mushroomy tasting mushroom. Everything's just more intense. You get that umami flavor. And once you get a mushroom of that quality, it's really hard to go back to buying a grocery store product. So I really enjoy cooking with her product at home. And I know a lot of chefs in town really enjoy working with them as well for just a more intense flavor.
Okay, I'm not trying to get you to do a commercial here, but what types of restaurants might be interested in Nicola's
Sure.
product?
And Nicola, you probably have a more updated list than I do. I believe places like Farmhouse, does Niche Food Group still use your product as well?
So Gerard Craft has always bought products from me.
Yeah. So I mean, I've seen the name on several menus around town. You can probably be more specific as to which ones.
Yeah. I mean, we go from St. Louis, from Annie Gunn's, all the way out Chesterfield, Yaya's, Farmhouse, Urban Chestnut, all their facilities buy from us. Juniper, the new restaurant called Vicia now buys from us too. We even go out as far as St. James, and we sell to the Public House Brewery and Just to Taste. We go to Columbia.
You stay mostly in Missouri, though?
Yes. And then we do sell to 2 or 3 places in Columbia, Broadway Brewery, the Wine Cellar, and the University of Missouri Club. And we even sell at the local Echo Bluff State Park, which is just literally 15 minutes around the corner from the farm. So,
There's not a lot of people, but I think what makes Ozark Forest mushroom so interesting is there's not a lot of people doing this in Missouri. You're one of the few, and possibly the only person doing the oak-grown shiitake mushrooms here, because it's not a quick turnaround when it comes to growing mushrooms.
No.
It's not a quick payoff. You don't plant it in April and harvest it in June. It takes a lot longer to inoculate and then sort of babysit these logs and make sure they're in the right conditions and the right temperature and the right humidity to then finally get the product that she's after. So it's definitely a labor of love and a time investment as well as a money investment.
Well, let's talk about that. What is the right humidity and temperature? I mean, can somebody who's listening to us now go home and do this?
Yeah, well, we're not like a mushroom factory. We don't have a laboratory or climate-controlled rooms. We actually use nature or forest to grow the mushrooms. And we do cheat. We use some overhead sprinklers. So, shiitakes really want a temperature and a moisture shock. So we soak these logs underwater in water tanks. After 24 hours, we stack them, and then they'll start fruiting, and then we put these humidity blankets over them, and we'll overhead sprinkle with sprayers out in the woods. So they need about a 60% humidity. Imagine, mushrooms grow when it's rained, and so we sort of wild simulate that in the woods. And we need shade. We need about 75-80% shade.
So is that what makes your mushrooms different than just about anybody else?
Yeah, and so we actually use a pine forest because it's shaded all year round. It's evergreen. And so you can imagine walking through the woods. There's like 20,000 logs just all stacked in different orientations, all under the shade. And then we have tanks where we soak them. And once you've soaked the log and they've fruited, you then have to give them, as I call it, a 2-month vacation. And they need to recover. And so what they're doing is they digest the sapwood on the log, not the heartwood, which is in the middle. The sapwood has all the sugars and carbohydrates. And so the mushroom is slowly, or the mycelium is slowly rotting that log. So you're actually eating digested wood.
And you said this started as a hobby. You sound like a scientist.
Well, actually, guess what? I used to be a high school scientist in England, and I've always loved biology. And I used to go foraging and pickling and canning and mushroom picking with my mother. So it's a natural thing to evolve into.
Okay. Well, you've got a fan email here.
Oh, I do?
Paul, who is a listener and lives in Hillsborough, Missouri, said he wanted everybody to know,
Oh, yes.
quote, just how brilliant an operation Nikki and Dan have grown over the last decades. He says they are consummate in their ability to grow mushrooms, supply a superior product to the St. Louis area, and they're also a wealth of information, which they freely share with anyone fortunate enough to ask them. So I know that you make an effort, a conscientious effort, not to throw away any mushrooms, but what do you do with them when they don't sell or they're damaged or, I don't know,
Right.
you're overstocked?
Well, they call me Thrifty Nikki for a good reason. And I think because my parents grew up during the war years, I grew up not throwing anything away. So, yeah, if they get wet, we destem them because you can't eat the stems, and we dry them. And we make a lot of dried mushroom products, mushroom rubs and powders. I even have a mushroom soy sauce that we make. So, and even the stalks I dry, and we use those in the soy sauce.
When you go to the Tower Grove Farmers Market, which is where I usually purchase the Ozark Forest products, there's definitely trays and trays of the mushrooms, just like the ones that we're looking at now. But there's also boxes of the soy sauce and dried mushrooms that aren't available fresh, and mustards and pickles and hot sauces and just all these different things that Nicola's managed to create. But the dried mushrooms I love buying and then soaking and using them. They're great. They make a great broth for like risotto or just anything to give a little extra boost to
Quick
it.
question, because we're running out of time here. Do you ever get sick of mushrooms?
No, I do not. No, I do not. Well, they say a shiitake a day keeps the doctor away in Japan, and they are a medicinal mushroom.
Not an apple, a shiitake.
No, they
Okay.
say that's what they say in Japan. Apparently, it's a proverb.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much, Nicola Macpherson of Ozark Forest Mushrooms and Sauce Magazine Managing Editor Catherine Klene, for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you for bringing the mushroom box in. They are beautiful, I'll say that. But thank you very much for being here with us.
No, thank you, Sharon.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.
St. Louis Public Radio's The Gateway gives you the day's news first thing every weekday morning. From the ever-evolving relationship between St. Louis City and County to developments in the Missouri and Illinois state capitals and reports from our correspondents in Rolla and the Metro East. We put it all in a roughly 10-minute package with clarity and context. Download The Gateway wherever you get podcasts.